It all started with a letter. Cade Booker, a proud third-generation rancher in Oak Creek, Texas, received an HOA violation notice just days before his family's annual reunion. The reason? More than 10 guests were coming, now outlawed by new HOA rules pushed by the overbearing president, Karen Halstead. She was notorious for enforcing petty regulations and had her sights set on making Cade an example. Despite the warning, Cade refused to cancel a century-old family tradition. Trucks rolled in, music played, and the Booker Ranch came alive with food, laughter, and stories. Karen, furious and armed with her clipboard, vowed there would be consequences. That night, she called the cops. But the joke was on her. The responding officer was none other than Chief Elijah Booker, Cade's father. Calm and authoritative, he reminded Karen that HOA bylaws weren't enforceable by police. There was no noise violation, no law broken, just family on their own land. Karen, humiliated and furious, left in defeat. The next day, retaliation came hard. Karen plastered the property with violation stickers and sent a flood of fines for absurd infractions: trash visibility, lawn chairs, livestock odor. She was trying to financially crush the Bookers out of Oak Creek. Cade and his cousin Lena dug in, determined to fight back. With help from Cade's father, they uncovered Karen's misuse of HOA funds. She'd paved her driveway with HOA money and failed to disclose past violations. At the next HOA board meeting, Cade publicly exposed Karen's misconduct with documents and proof. With the community watching, the board voted to suspend her immediately. Karen's power crumbled. 2 months later, the HOA leadership was restructured with a fair, community-focused board. The Bookers' fines were wiped clean. And that next summer, the Booker reunion returned bigger than ever, with the police chief himself leading the celebration on horseback. Some traditions are worth fighting for. It started with a letter, a single, folded slip of paper, typed in Times New Roman, slipped into the rusting mailbox at the edge of our family ranch. The letterhead bore the crest of the Oak Creek Homeowners Association, though my family never much cared for bureaucracy, especially the kind that came with fees and meetings about fence paint. Violation: unauthorized gathering of more than 10 persons on residential property, it read. I crumpled the letter in my hand as I stood on the porch of the house my grandfather built. We were gearing up for our annual family reunion, a tradition, a celebration, and apparently, according to the HOA, now an infraction. My name's Cade Booker, 32, third-generation rancher, and the last of the Bookers still living on the land full-time. The others came back from the cities once a year, Dallas, San Antonio, even as far as Chicago, to remember who we were. Cowboys, Texans, family. But over the last 3 years, Oak Creek had changed. Big money had moved in. Wrought iron gates, pristine driveways, gardeners instead of gardens. And at the center of this transformation was her, Karen Halstead, the self-appointed queen of Oak Creek. Karen was HOA president and made sure everyone knew it. She drove a Mercedes with custom plates that read Ruler One and wore sunglasses like they were a crown. She didn't just follow the rules, she weaponized them. I walked inside and slapped the letter on the kitchen counter. We got our first warning, I said to my cousin Lena, who was stirring a pot of chili so thick it could stand a spoon upright. She barely glanced up. HOA. Yup. Karen. She shrugged. Let her come. Ain't no law against family. But there was. Karen had recently passed new bylaws banning gatherings of over 10 people without written HOA approval, a rule that made no exception for long-standing traditions. And the fine was no slap on the wrist, $1,000 per violation per day. I tried calling. I left voicemails, emails. No response. Karen didn't negotiate with what she called legacy landowners. So we did what Bookers always do. We went ahead anyway. That Saturday, trucks rolled in one after another. Flags were hoisted. Smokers fired up. Children played tag beneath the oaks. There was music, live fiddle and banjo, echoing into the evening. Then she arrived. Karen, in her spotless white blouse and designer sunglasses, holding a clipboard like a sword. She stood at the edge of the property, like she was inspecting a crime scene. "Cade," she said coolly, "this is in direct violation of HOA Code 14B. You've been warned." I smiled politely, holding back 1,000 things I wanted to say. "Karen, this land's been in our family since 1897. We'll be done by Sunday. No harm done." Her eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." By nightfall, the party was in full swing. No one noticed the black SUV parked across the street. No one heard her whispered call to the Oak Creek private security. And then came the sirens. The red and blue lights cast long shadows across the driveway as the police cruiser rolled to a stop. Conversations froze. Drinks paused midair. Even the fiddlers stopped playing. Karen stood triumphantly at the curb, arms crossed. "I told you," she said, her voice slicing through the silence. "No one is above the law." I stepped forward, calm but tense. I'd been through enough county fairs and cattle auctions to know when things were about to get ugly. But this was something else. The car door opened, and out stepped Chief Elijah Booker, my father. He stood tall in his uniform, the badge gleaming on his chest. His presence alone was enough to make grown men second-guess their decisions. But to me, he was just Dad. Karen's jaw dropped. You're the responding officer?" Dad adjusted his belt and looked around. Had a report of a disturbance. Gathering exceeding HOA regulations. Karen thrust the clipboard at him. "Exactly. Over 70 people. This is a clear breach. I demand citations. Fines. Removal." Dad looked at the paper, then at me. "You holding a riot here, son?" I raised an eyebrow. "Just a family reunion." He nodded slowly, then turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, I see no public disturbance. No noise beyond reasonable hours. No illegal activity." Karen sputtered. But the HOA bylaws." "HOA bylaws aren't state law, ma'am. They're civil agreements, not criminal code. We don't enforce those." It was like a slap to the face. Karen's smugness dissolved into rage. "You mean to tell me this hillbilly party gets a free pass because you're related?" Dad stepped forward, now just a bit closer. "Ma'am, if you believe a civil code has been violated, you're welcome to file a complaint with the HOA board or take it to small claims. But unless someone's breaking the law, this is a family enjoying their property." The crowd cheered, not loud, but enough for Karen to hear. Enough to sting. She turned sharply, heels crunching on the gravel, and stormed off into the night. But she wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, we woke up to find bright orange stickers plastered across our barn and front gate. Notice: property under review, potential code violation. Karen had escalated. Within 48 hours, we received certified letters from the HOA declaring us in breach of multiple rules: excessive vehicle presence, unauthorized signage, a homemade "Welcome Booker Clan" banner, and even livestock odor complaints. It wasn't just about the reunion anymore. It was war. She weaponized every petty rule in the HOA book. We were fined for the number of trash bags on the curb, for having folding chairs visible from the street, for the acoustic band not being on a permitted list of acceptable entertainers. Some of our neighbors sympathized quietly. Others backed her. HOA compliance officers, newly hired, started showing up unannounced. Cameras were installed on the community sign, ostensibly for safety, but always facing our ranch. Lena and I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by documents. "We can't pay these fines, Cade," she said. "This ain't just harassment. She's trying to bleed us dry." I nodded. My jaw tightened. She's trying to erase us. Turn this place into some manicured Stepford village. We had two options: give in and move out, or fight back. We chose the latter. I called my father. "Think you can dig into her a little?" "Nothing illegal. Just neighborly curiosity." Dad chuckled. "Funny. I was just thinking of checking those public records." And what he found lit a fire. Karen Halstead had used HOA funds to pave her own driveway. She paid a contractor without board approval, violating the very bylaws she used against everyone else. She also held 3 unpaid code violations from her previous neighborhood, which she never disclosed on her application to the Oak Creek HOA. We compiled everything. Dates, records, witnesses. Then, at the next HOA board meeting, we made our move. It was standing room only. Neighbors who'd never attended a single meeting packed the Oak Creek Community Hall. Word had spread, Karen Halstead was being challenged. She opened the meeting with her usual clipped voice, pretending the room wasn't vibrating with tension. "First order of business," she said. "Review of recent violations and penalties issued to." "I have a motion," I said loudly from the back. She faltered. "You're not on the board, Mr. Booker." "No, but I have evidence of a board member's misconduct, which, according to Bylaw 3.2.1, mandates immediate review." Gasps. Phones raised. Cameras recording. I walked to the front and laid out the documents. Karen Halstead used HOA funds for personal property improvements. She violated contractor approval protocols. She failed to disclose a history of violations from her prior HOA. That, per Section 5.1, is grounds for removal. The room exploded in whispers. Karen's face went pale. "These are lies. They're public records. We have copies." One of the board members, Mr. Chan, who'd been quietly skeptical of Karen for months, cleared his throat. "I move to suspend President Halstead pending an internal audit." Seconded. Voted. Passed. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. She stormed out, this time without the clipboard. The fines against our family were revoked. The orange notices taken down. Cameras removed. 2 months later, a new board was elected. Fair. Reasonable. Willing to work with the community instead of ruling it. And the next year, the Booker family reunion had its largest turnout yet, complete with a parade down Main Street, led by Chief Booker himself on horseback. Because some traditions, you don't just protect them, you fight for them.